Okay, so They Live is a movie about aliens. Not the cool kind of aliens either that have laser guns and are like those from Mars Attacks. No, not those kinds of aliens. These aliens wear suits, run banks, and control the media. And these aliens, crazy part, are not invading Earth. They're here. John Carpenter's 1988 sci-fi horror satire is often remembered for one thing, the bubblegum line. And you know what line I'm talking about. But this movie is so much more than a meme. It's a furious genre-bending critique of capitalism, media manipulation, and the illusion of freedom. Carpenter was not subtle. He literally said They Live as a documentary, and he's not wrong.
Do you think the film has still some relevant social commentary?
Oh, that's never ended. That's still with us. They Live is a documentary about what's going on now. Relevance, of course, yeah, it's still here.
The film's central metaphor is simple but devastating. The ruling class is not just corrupt, they're not even human. They're aliens, and they built a system that is so simple, so seductive that most people don't even realize they're being controlled. And if that sounds like a conspiracy theory, well, it may be, but it's also a metaphor. Big, angry, campy metaphor that still hits harder than most political thrillers today. Welcome back to Retro Horror School, where we discuss, dissect, and analyze retro horror from the 1970s through the 2010s. I am Brandy, otherwise known as the Terrorific Lady. And today we are going to dive in and do a retrospective of John Carpenter's They Live, the movie that saw through the lies, punched ideology in the face, and made sunglasses terrifying. The 1980s were a whole vibe. Reagan was president. Wall Street was in its phase where it was utterly thriving. And poor people were told to just pull themselves up by their bootstraps while billionaires got tax breaks. This was the era of Reaganomics. Deregulation, the trickle-down theory, and the rise of corporate media consolidation. Basically, if you weren't rich, you were either invisible or you were a punchline. Carpenter saw all this and said, okay, this is all messed up. What if the rich were actually aliens? And you know, that's not the worst theory that I ever heard. And to really hit home with the gap or the idea of rich versus poor, he actually filmed in a real homeless encampment and paid the residents to be extras. That's not just gritty, it's ethically gritty. The aliens in They Live, they're not like the typical aliens that are here to pew pew. The aliens in They Live aren't here to completely destroy Earth. They're here to run it, almost like it's a corporation, through ads, media, and economic control. So basically, they're lobbyists, except with worse skin. And the humans who help them, they're not hypnotized, they're not working against their will, they're just sellouts. They know what's going on, and they're completely fine with it. Carpenter's saying the system isn't broken, it's just working exactly as intended, and you aren't meant to notice. The plot, once again, for John Carpenter's They Live is very simple and very straightforward. You have Nada, played by Roddy Piper, who is just a drifter who is looking for work. But he finds these sunglasses, which he puts on, and these sunglasses help him see the truth. Billboards say obey, magazines say consume, and the rich look like expired hot dogs. The glasses are a plot device, yes, but they're also a metaphor for awareness, for waking up, for finally pulling off the blinders to where you can finally see. They also are a metaphor for revealing the hidden structures of control in everyday life. And the best part is after he puts on the glasses and after he sees the truth, he is looking to just immediately start punching and throwing hands and getting others to see the truth and to try and figure out some way to bring these aliens down. Kurt Russell was meant to play the part of Nada, but he was all caught up in Tequila Sunrise. So Carpenter was a fan of wrestling, and he was at WrestleMania, and he saw Roddy Piper, and he was thinking, that guy looks like he could punch capitalism in the face. Let's cast him.
It seemed to me that They Live needed a kind of working guy, non-middle class, blue-collar guy who's working poor, who were real and are still real in this country. So I thought he had a quality about him. Not the personality that you see in the wrestling ring or in his interviews, not that over-the-top guy, but a different fella. But a little rough-hewn, And it was terrific. He did a great job for me.
And he brought Keith David on board to play Frank, and he wrote the role especially for him because he wanted somebody that could match Roddy Piper's intensity without turning the movie into a UWF promo or a wrestling match.
In terms of casting Keith David, the idea occurred to me when I was writing it. And I thought, oh, he's great, and he'd be great. There was going to be a big fight in the movie, so I wonder if he could handle it.
And speaking of wrestling match, kind of the alley fight between Frank and Nada. It was rehearsed for 3 weeks, and it's gloriously stretched out, minutes upon minutes of pure testosterone and stubbornness.
The fight scene came about in the writing stage, but it was after Roddy was cast as the lead, and Roddy's a wrestler, so he fights every night. So I thought, well, we need a fight scene in this damn thing. What I did in the script was, I just wrote, the fight continued with a blank page, the next page, the fight continued. And we'll figure it out later, we'll work on it. So Jeff Amata was our stunt coordinator. I've worked with him for years. He was also every alien in the film, by the way. He was in suits, he was a woman, he was a president. Jeff Amata was the alien race. Jeff and Roddy and Keith were in the backyard of my then Van Nuys office with pads, worked it out from beginning to end, and everybody contributed. We worked for a month and a half on it. Roddy told me once, the best fight you can have is when you rehearse it in a month and a half. Because it looks great and it's all timed perfect. And they were so good, they were making contact, meaning that the fists were hitting flesh. A lot of people said at the time, this is excessive. This fight is excessive, but I loved it.
Also, for the script, Carpenter used the pseudonym Frank Armitage, which is a Lovecraft reference because, when you're making a movie about capitalist aliens, why not throw in some cosmic horror seasoning on top of it? The script itself was based on Ray Nelson's short story, 8 o'clock in the morning, which is a little bit more existential, a little more out there, a little more philosophical, and a little less punchy. Carpenter was like, okay, I like the story, I like the premise, let's just add more wrestling to it. They Live isn't just about aliens versus humans. It's about systems. The aliens represent the elite. The subliminal messages represent control. And the sunglasses are your metaphorical wake-up call. It's a critique of the illusion of choice in capitalism, which is about how consumer culture masks deeper systems of control. There was a really cool video that I watched about this subject that I will be sure to link either up here or in the description below. But think of it this way. It's like you have two separate tubes of toothpaste. Both seem like they're from different brands, but they're actually just like from the same company. So the illusion of choice. It's like you're choosing between an apple. And Carpenter doesn't give us a happy ending. Yes, Nada exposes the system, but we don't know what happens. For all we know, society and its structures still stay intact. What do you think happens in the ending? Or after everything, after the aliens are exposed? What do you think happens after that? Let me know in the comments below. So yeah, he exposes the truth, but the system potentially stays intact. It's kind of like realizing that your house is haunted, but the ghost there still pays rent, so you just kind of learn to live with it. Because the real horror here is not the aliens. It's in the normalization of control. The fact that we are so used to being manipulated that we don't even notice it anymore. So when They Live dropped in November of 1988, critics were like, what's this? What the heck is this? What even is this? The acting? Too stiff. The dialogue? Too cheesy. The social commentary? A little too on the nose. But over time, the film aged like a fine conspiracy theory. This movie gained a cult following, and critics realized that Carpenter wasn't just making this movie because he was mad. I mean, yeah, he was mad, but also because he was right. Now, it is up there and considered one of his best films. The satire, sharp. The aesthetics, iconic. And the rage against capitalism, timeless. It's the cinematic equivalent of your weird uncle's Facebook rant, except this one is actually coherent and brilliant. This film has absolutely permeated its way into pop culture. Roddy Piper improvised the most iconic line, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum."
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
This line has been quoted in South Park and probably by everybody that you know who may or may not have seen this movie. The film's legacy, it is a cult classic, a meme, and a media studies thesis all wrapped up into one. Carpenter didn't just make a movie. He gave a cinematic middle finger to the system. And the rage in this film is personal, political. I've heard a lot of people comment on this movie is terrifyingly prescient. For a movie made in 1988, it seems a little too real, and it doesn't just critique capitalism. It criticizes the way ideology hides in plain sight, right in front of our faces. It shows us how systems of control are normalized, aestheticized, and sold back to us as freedom. And that's why it still hits, because while the sunglasses may be fictional, the manipulation, very real. Very real. You can look at this movie and tell right away it's a John Carpenter film. Why? Well, first off, the very iconic score. You are able to recognize it from the very first opening bass, acoustic guitar, and even in the commercials that are used on TV, kind of the synthy kind of music. John Carpenter's score is interwoven throughout this film and definitely sets the mood. Next, you will notice the idea of very potent political critique in this film. You saw a bit of that political critique in his film, The Thing. Some people believe that The Thing is a critique against Cold War and isolationism from our allies and from other countries. And in here, the political critique is different. It critiques the system and how the elites are responsible for keeping that system in control. Both those movies offer political critique nonetheless. Next, a very popular Carpenter theme is the theme of isolation. You will see that a lot in his work. You saw it in The Thing. You saw it in Prince of Darkness. And you also see it here, because those who know the truth are isolated from a mass majority of people who don't. I mean, try convincing people that some actually aren't people they're aliens. And it also plays with the idea of characters as the outsiders. So again, these characters are isolated, but they're also outsiders in the fact that they are isolated. They're outsiders because they know the truth. So the outsider characters and the isolation kind of go hand in hand in this movie. They Live is a movie that is very charged with political and social commentary. Yes, it's angry, and in a way it's also weirdly hopeful. It's weirdly hopeful in the fact that it gives us hope that we actually can expose the systems for what they are. It's a movie that punches up, kicks ass, and chews bubblegum. It's campy, chaotic, and it's more relevant now than ever. If you ever felt the world was gaslighting you with ads and vibes, this movie actually gets it. It's not only about aliens, it's about the ideology, waking up, seeing through the noise. So yeah, Carpenter made a movie with a wrestler, sunglasses, and weird-looking skull-faced billionaires. But he also made something that speaks to anybody who has looked around and goes, wait, where am I? What is all this? Is this a thank you so much for watching this retrospective on John Carpenter's They Live, which happens to be one of my favorite films of his. The Thing is still tops for me, but They Live is pretty high up there. I'll leave my ranking for all of John Carpenter's horror films either up here or in the comments below, but what I would really like to know is, where does They Live rank for you on your list of John Carpenter films? I will have more awesome content and retrospectives coming up for you in the future, but until then, rewind and watch all of the retrospectives of John Carpenter's that I have out so far. Class is dismissed, everybody, for now, but I will see you next time. Bye!